PAVEL DUROV, the founder of Telegram, was recently arrested in France on charges related to criminal activities facilitated through his messaging platform. His arrest has sparked widespread discussion, especially given Durov's history of advocating for privacy and free speech. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. It will help our channel. Durov's arrest came as a surprise, with French authorities citing charges that include drug trafficking and fraud. He was granted bail under strict conditions, including a €5 million deposit and a prohibition on leaving France. Alongside his arrest, his companion Julie Vavilova has gone missing, leading to speculations about her possible involvement as a Mossad agent. Just 3 months before his arrest, Durov gave a revealing interview where he discussed his challenges with U.S. authorities, including the FBI's surveillance of his activities. He highlighted the importance of privacy on social media, emphasizing how Telegram has become a platform for protesters to express their views without censorship. Unlike other platforms, which often comply with government requests to suppress certain content, Telegram has maintained a strict policy against censorship. In his interview, Durov stressed how Telegram has empowered users worldwide, particularly those in authoritarian regimes, to communicate freely without fear of government interference. His commitment to privacy and free speech has been a cornerstone of Telegram's ethos, even as it has attracted criticism and scrutiny from various governments. Let's see what he said in his interview.
It was, I think, 2012 or 2011 when we faced our first issues in Russia. Because you see, I was still a big believer in these values of free market, freedoms, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly. So when the Russian opposition started to use VK to organize large protests in Russia, where like almost 500,000 people would go and protest on the main square or some of the main squares of the city, we were requested to ban these communities on VK by the government. And I refused. The VK is a social networking platform, right. So they have these large public communities that anybody can join, anybody can read what people are discussing or what the administrators are posting. They can comment, they can share. So it was a tool for these protesters to organize themselves. Back then, it wasn't about us, siding with one side, with one part of the political fight or the other. It was us defending the freedom of speech and the freedom of assembly, which we believed was the right thing. But that didn't go too well with the government, and they were not too happy about that, I would say. And in a few years from then, in 2013, we had a similar situation where you had these protests in Ukraine where people again would use VK to organize themselves and go to the main square of the city and show their disagreement with the government.
Yes.
And we received a request/demand from the Russian side saying you have to give us the private data of the organizers of these protests. And our response was, wait a minute, this is a different country. We won't betray our Ukrainian users because you ask us to do that. And we decided to refuse, and that didn't go too well with the Russian government as well. So at the end of that year, I had to make a difficult decision because I was offered basically a choice between two suboptimal options. One of which was I would start complying to whatever the leaders of the country told me to do. The other one was I could sell my stake in the company, resign as the CEO, and leave the country. I chose the latter. For me, everything in my life was about becoming free.
Yes.
And to the extent it is possible, my mission in life was to allow other people to also become free, in a sense. And using the platforms that we create, or I created, my hope was that they could express their freedoms. We got too much attention from the FBI, the security agencies, wherever we came to the US. So to give you an example, last time I was in the US, I brought an engineer that is working for Telegram, and there was an attempt to secretly hire my engineer behind my back by cybersecurity officers. They were curious to learn which open source libraries are integrated to the Telegram's app, on the client side, and they were trying to persuade him to use certain open source tools that he would then integrate into the Telegram's code that, in my understanding, would serve as backdoors. The US government, or maybe any other government, because a backdoor is a backdoor regardless of who is using it.
That's right.
Understanding is that they wanted to establish a relationship to kind of, in a way, control Telegram better. I understand that they were doing their job. It's just that for us running a privacy-focused social media platform, that probably wasn't the best environment to be in. We want to be focused on what we do, not on government relations of that sort. We received a letter from, I believe, congressman of the Democratic side, and they requested that we would share all the data we had in relation to what they called this uprising. And we checked it with our lawyers, and they said, you better ignore it. But the letter seemed very serious, and the letter said, if you fail to comply with this request, you will be in violation with the US Constitution or something like that. But they wanted the data of people, who were demonstrating in Washington or wherever they were doing. You're probably right. I'm not an expert in the US politics. What was funny about it is 2 weeks after that letter, we got another letter, a new letter from the Republican side, the Congress. And there we read that if we give out any data according to the previous request, we would be in violation of the US Constitution. So we got 2 letters that said whatever we do would be violating the US Constitution in a way. That was my understanding of these letters. Largest pressure towards Telegram is not coming from governments. It's coming from Apple and Google. Right? So when it comes to freedom of speech, those 2 platforms, they could basically censor whatever you can read, access on your smartphone. What they make very clear that if we fail to comply with their guidelines, so they call it, Telegram could be removed from the stores. Apple and Google are not very compromising when it comes to their guidelines. If they believe some content is against their rules, they will see to it that all the apps that are distributed through their stores comply with these rules. But it's not the rules, it's the application of the rules. The rules themselves, they're pretty general. There must be no violence, discrimination, publicly available, child abuse materials. It's hard to disagree with that.
Yes.
But then when they start to apply those rules, sometimes we are not agreeing with their interpretation, and we try to get back to Apple or Google, whoever it is, and say, look, we think you got it wrong. We think actually this is the legitimate way of people expressing their opinions. And sometimes they do agree, to their credit. Sometimes they disagree, and we still have to take some content down, at least in the version of Telegram that is distributed through their platform. Yeah, I'm really hopeful that the past is behind us. I want to be optimistic. I think now we reached a point where politicians and societies know what to expect from social media platforms and where the red lines are.
Yes.
We also learned much more about the requirements coming from both them and Google/Apple. So, and our users get better educated as well at what is allowed and what's not allowed. So it doesn't really matter whether it's opposition or the ruling party that is using Telegram. For us, we apply the rules equally to all sides. We don't become prejudiced in this way. It's not that we are rooting for the opposition or we are rooting for the ruling party. It's not that we don't care, but we think it's important to have this platform that is neutral to all voices, because we believe that the competition of different ideas can result in progress and a better world for everyone.